The Firefighter Who Rescued My Lawn Chair. Chapter 1. The Great Lawn Chair. Rescue. The first thing Lucy Harper heard was her own scream, followed immediately by the sound of a $20 aluminum lawn chair sailing across her backyard, like it had personally decided to pursue a career in aviation. "No, no, no, no!" she shouted, chasing after it with a paintbrush still in her hand, dripping robin's egg blue down her wrist. The wind, which had been merely rude all morning, chose that exact moment to become downright malicious, snatching the chair off the grass and launching it clean over the fence. Lucy skidded to a stop at the property line just in time to watch her grandmother's beloved reading chair, the one with the faded floral cushion, the one Lucy had sworn to fix up before the first snow, cartwheel through the air and land with a metallic clatter on the roof of the Pinewood Falls Public Library. She stood there, blue paint dripping onto her sneakers, and whispered, "Oh, come on." Mrs. Odom from next door, who had been watering her petunias and witnessed the entire spectacle, dropped her hose and clutched her chest like she'd seen a meteor strike. "Lucy, are you all right? Was that an explosion?" "It was a lawn chair, Mrs. Odom." "A what flew onto the library?" "A lawn chair." But Mrs. Odom, bless her 78-year-old heart, was already halfway back to her house, phone in hand, dialing 911 with the grim determination of a woman who had waited her whole life for something exciting to happen in Pinewood Falls. Lucy didn't know that yet. She only knew that she needed to retrieve her grandmother's chair before the librarian, Mr. Higgins, noticed a random piece of patio furniture had landed on his roof and assumed the apocalypse had arrived. She climbed over her own fence, not gracefully, her overalls catching on a nail, ripping a hole exactly where a hole absolutely should not be, and jogged the 2 blocks to Main Street, silently rehearsing her apology to Mr. Higgins. She did not expect to arrive and find 2 fire trucks, a police cruiser, an ambulance, and roughly 40 concerned townspeople gathered in front of the library, all staring up at the roof where her lawn chair sat innocently, looking rather pleased with its new elevated real estate. "Oh no," Lucy said out loud. "Oh no, no, no." "Ma'am, is this your property?" A firefighter in a yellow helmet turned to her, clipboard in hand, radio crackling at his hip. "It's a lawn chair," Lucy said weakly, as though this explained everything, which, in her mind, it absolutely should have. "We got a call about a possible structural emergency. Debris on the roof. Someone thought a piece of the roofing had come loose. See, it's a lawn chair," Lucy repeated, feeling the words lose all meaning as she said them a third time. That was when the crowd parted, the way crowds do in small towns when someone important walks through, and Lucy saw him for the first time. Captain Ryan Walker. He moved like a man who had never once been in a hurry and never once needed to be, because everyone else naturally got out of his way. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair silvering slightly at the temples despite looking no older than 38, he surveyed the roof with the calm, assessing eyes of someone who had seen actual emergencies and understood immediately that this was not one of them. "Report," he said to the younger firefighter. Sir, it appears to be a lawn chair." Ryan looked at the roof. He looked at the chair. He looked at Lucy, standing there in paint-splattered overalls with a hole in the knee and blue handprints on her cheek from where she'd wiped away sweat. Something flickered behind his eyes. Lucy would later swear it was the beginning of a smile, though he never let it fully arrive. "Get the ladder," he said. "For a lawn chair?" "We're already here," Ryan said simply. "Might as well." And that was how Captain Ryan Walker, decorated volunteer firefighter, town hero, and widely regarded as the most serious man in Pinewood Falls, climbed 22 feet up an extension ladder in full view of half the town to rescue a rusting lawn chair from the roof of the public library, while a bored teenager named Dev Patel live-streamed the entire thing on his phone because, in his own words later, "I thought maybe there was a raccoon involved." There was no raccoon involved. There was, however, a moment, just one moment, when Ryan reached the top of the ladder, secured the chair under one muscular arm, turned to climb back down, and looked directly into the phone camera with an expression of such profound, weary solemnity that it would later be described by internet commenters as the most done a man has ever looked in the history of mankind. He handed the chair down to another firefighter with the gravity of a man passing along a wounded comrade. Then he looked at Lucy. "This yours?" "Yes, I'm so sorry. It's my grandmother's. Was my grandmother's. It's mine now. The wind it caught it, and You should weigh it down next time," he said. Not unkindly, not particularly kindly either. Just factually, the way you'd tell someone their shoe was untied. "Right. Yes, weigh it down. Got it." He handed her the chair. Their fingers brushed against the warm aluminum frame for exactly 1 second, and Lucy felt something entirely unrelated to embarrassment travel up her arm. "Have a good day, ma'am," Ryan said, and turned to walk back to the fire truck, already forgetting, or so it seemed, that the last 20 minutes had happened at all. Lucy stood on the library steps, clutching her chair, paint drying in her hair, and did not yet know that Dev Patel's video had already been shared 400 times. By the time she got home, it would be 4,000. By the next morning, it would be 4 million. Chapter 2. Going viral. Lucy woke up to 73 text messages, none of which she understood, until her phone buzzed again with a call from her best friend Priya in Chicago. "Lucy Harper," Priya said, her voice doing that specific pitch it only did during true emergencies or juicy gossip. "You are famous." "I am not famous. I am the woman who almost gave the fire department a heart attack over a lawn chair." "You're both of those things. Check Twitter." Lucy checked Twitter, then Instagram, then, against her better judgment, TikTok, where the video of Captain Ryan Walker descending a ladder with a lawn chair tucked under his arm, like a rescued infant, had accumulated 2.3 million views overnight, captioned, "Small-town hero saves lawn chair from certain doom, is deeply unimpressed about it." The comments were, universally, unhinged with delight. "The way he just looks at the camera? Sir, you didn't have to give us that much attitude for free? America's most tired man. I would let him rescue anything of mine, TBH. Who is she, though? The girl who owns the chair?" That last question, it turned out, was the one the internet cared about most, and by 10 a.m., someone had identified her as Lucy Harper, the artist who just moved to town, and by noon, a local news van had parked outside her grandmother's, her, house, and by 2 p.m., she was being interviewed on the front porch by a reporter named Candace, who kept referring to the lawn chair as the chair heard round the world. "So, Lucy," Candace said, microphone thrust forward, "what do you say to Captain Walker for his heroic rescue?" Lucy, who had not slept properly and had definitely not brushed her hair, blinked into the camera. "I mean, I feel terrible. He probably has actual fires to put out." "Any plans to meet him again?" We've met. Once, briefly. He seemed very busy being unimpressed with me." That clip, too, went viral, mostly because of the specific way Lucy said, "unimpressed with me," which several commenters described as devastatingly relatable and the loneliest sentence ever spoken by a woman on a porch. By evening, the Pinewood Falls Volunteer Fire Department's social media account, previously followed by 340 people, mostly relatives of the firefighters, had gained 18,000 new followers, all of whom wanted to know one thing. Who is the grumpy hot firefighter, and does he have a girlfriend? the department's social media manager, a sweet 19-year-old volunteer named Tessa, called an emergency meeting to inform Captain Walker that he was, as she put it, kind of a whole thing now. A whole what? Ryan asked, arms crossed, standing in the doorway of the station's kitchen like a man being told his house was on fire, which, ironically, he would have handled with far more composure. A meme, Captain. You're a meme. I don't know what that means. It means people love you, millions of people, because of the chair. Ryan looked, for a long moment, like a man reconsidering every choice that had led him to this exact conversation. Then he said, "Is the chair okay?" Tessa blinked. The lawn chair? It took a hard landing. Somebody should check the frame for warping. And that, more than anything, was the moment Tessa decided Captain Ryan Walker was either the most oblivious man alive or the funniest, and she genuinely could not decide which. Meanwhile, across town, Lucy sat on her porch steps that night, staring at the now infamous lawn chair, which she had, at Ryan's suggestion, weighed down with a cinder block for the time being. The wind had died. The mountains behind her house were turning that particular shade of violet blue that happened only at dusk, and for the first time since she'd inherited this house, since her grandmother had passed, since her freelance illustration contracts had dried up in Chicago, since she'd packed her entire life into a U-Haul and driven 1,100 miles to a town she'd never seen except in her grandmother's photographs. Lucy laughed, really laughed, the kind that came from somewhere deep and surprised, the kind that made her eyes water. "Well, Gran," she said to the chair, "you always did want to be the center of attention." The chair, of course, said nothing back. But somewhere across town, in a fire station kitchen, Ryan Walker found himself unable to stop thinking about the woman with blue paint in her hair, and the way she'd apologized to him 3 separate times for something that, if he was honest with himself, had been the most entertaining afternoon he'd had in longer than he wanted to admit. Chapter 3. Captain Walker. To understand why the whole town found the video so surprising, you had to understand who Ryan Walker actually was. He had grown up in Pinewood Falls, the son of the town's previous fire captain, a booming, laughing man named Big Tom Walker, who had died fighting a wildfire on Widow's Ridge when Ryan was 19. Ryan had joined the department at 21, not because anyone made him, but because he didn't know how to be anything other than the kind of man who ran toward the thing everyone else ran from. He'd been engaged once to a woman named Claire. She'd been a nurse at the county hospital, quick-witted and warm, the only person who could make Ryan laugh until he actually made noise. They'd been 6 weeks from their wedding when a truck ran a red light on Route 9 during an ice storm and took her from him in less time than it took most people to finish a cup of coffee. That had been 7 years ago. Ryan had not dated anyone seriously since. He had, instead, become the kind of man the whole town depended on, the one who showed up when your pipes burst, when your cat got stuck in a storm drain, when your teenage son wrapped his car around a guardrail on prom night. He coached the volunteer department with quiet, unshakable competence. He organized the 4th of July safety detail every year without being asked. He never took a vacation. He rarely smiled. "He's the best man in this town," Ryan's oldest friend and second in command, Marcus Webb, liked to say, "and the loneliest." So when the video of Ryan solemnly descending a ladder with a lawn chair went viral, half the town watched it and laughed, and the other half, the half who'd known him since he was a boy, who remembered him at Claire's funeral, who had quietly worried about him for years, watched it and felt something like hope. "He looked almost happy," said Doris from the diner, rewatching the clip for the 4th time. "Did you see it? Right there, right before he turned around." That's the closest thing to a smile I've seen out of that man since 2019. Doris wasn't entirely wrong. Something about the absurdity of the entire situation, the fire trucks, the crowd, the $20 lawn chair treated like a national emergency, the woman with paint in her hair apologizing to him with such genuine, flustered sincerity, had cracked something open in Ryan that had been sealed shut for a long time. He found himself, 3 days later, still thinking about her name. Lucy Harper, the artist, thinking about old Mrs. Harper's granddaughter, from what he'd gathered. The sweet, elderly woman who used to bring the department cookies every Christmas until she passed last spring. He told himself he was simply doing his job when he drove past her house that Tuesday afternoon and noticed she was up on a rickety ladder trying to reattach a gutter that had clearly seen better decades. He told himself the same thing when he pulled over. "That ladder's not rated for that kind of angle," he called out the truck window. Lucy nearly fell off it. "Captain Walker." "Ryan's fine." "Ryan," she repeated, like she was testing the word. "I'm just trying to fix the gutter before it rains again." "You're going to break your neck." "I appreciate the vote of confidence." He got out of the truck without being asked, walked over, and held the ladder steady with one hand. "Come down. I'll do it." "You don't have to." "You'll fall. I'll catch you. Either way, we're doing this the safe way." Lucy climbed down, brushing her hands on her jeans, and watched as Ryan, Captain Walker, town hero, star of 40 million internet views, climbed her rickety ladder in his civilian clothes and fixed her gutter in 11 minutes flat, without complaint, without small talk, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "There," he said, climbing back down. "That should hold through winter." "Thank you. Really. Can I make you coffee or something? As a thank you? It's the least I can do, considering you've now rescued both my grandmother's lawn chair and my actual neck." Ryan looked at her for a long moment. There was blue paint, Lucy realized belatedly, still faintly visible on her wrist from 3 days ago, a smudge she hadn't managed to fully scrub off. "Coffee?" he said, like he was considering a complex tactical decision. "Sure. Okay." It was the first time, in 7 years, that Ryan Walker had said yes to anything that wasn't an emergency. Chapter 4. Coffee after the headlines. The Roasted Pine, Pinewood Falls' only coffee shop was, as it turned out, the absolute worst place in town for two suddenly famous people to try to have a quiet conversation. The moment Lucy and Ryan walked in together, the entire cafe went silent, the way rooms do in movies right before someone starts clapping. Then someone did, in fact, start clapping, and within 30 seconds, half the customers had their phones out. "Oh no," Lucy whispered. "Yeah," Ryan agreed grimly. They ended up in the back corner booth, hunched over their mugs like fugitives, while the barista, a chatty college kid named Oliver, accidentally walked past their table 4 separate times, each time slower than the last. "So," Lucy said, wrapping both hands around her mug. "This is a lot." "It'll die down." "Will it? Because I looked this morning and someone made a t-shirt of your face next to a lawn chair emoji." Ryan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "A t-shirt. A t-shirt. Is my face accurate?" Lucy laughed, that same surprised, unguarded laugh from her porch steps. "Weirdly, yes. They got the eyebrows exactly right." For the first time, Ryan smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It barely qualified as one at all, really. Just a small shift at the corner of his mouth. But Lucy felt it like sunlight breaking through clouds, and she suspected, though she'd never say it out loud, that she would spend a great deal of time in the future trying to make that exact expression happen again. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Why'd you actually climb up there? For a lawn chair, I mean." You could have just told everyone it wasn't an emergency and gone home. Ryan considered this for a moment, turning his mug slowly on the table. We got the call. Dispatched. Once we're there, we're there. Might as well finish the job, even if the job's ridiculous? I was going to say lightweight, but sure, ridiculous works. My grandmother would have loved this, you know, Lucy said, softer now. She was exactly the kind of person who'd think it was hilarious that her lawn chair caused a citywide incident. She had this wicked sense of humor. Everyone in town called her Mrs. Harper, all proper, but she used to prank the mailman constantly. Fake spiders in the mailbox, that kind of thing. I remember her, Ryan said. She used to bring the station cookies every Christmas. Snickerdoodles. My guys used to fight over them. Lucy's eyes went bright and a little wet, though she blinked it back quickly. She passed in March. That's actually why I'm here. She left me the house. I'd been meaning to come sooner, but life got complicated. Chicago got complicated. So I just packed up and drove out, thinking I'd fix the place up and figure things out from there. So far, my plan has mostly involved destroying municipal property. From there, you're doing fine, Ryan said, and he meant it in the plain, unadorned way he meant everything. The house looks good. Better than it did last year, honestly. You've seen it before? Drove past it plenty of times. Your grandmother used to wave at every truck that went by. Didn't matter if she knew who was driving. Lucy smiled at that, imagining it, feeling something warm settle in her chest at the thought of her grandmother's kindness rippling outward even now, even after she was gone, even into a conversation with a stranger who wasn't quite a stranger anymore. They talked for 2 hours. About the town, about Lucy's illustration work, which she'd been quietly reviving with sketches of the mountains behind her house. About the fire department's upcoming 4th of July fundraiser. Ryan didn't talk about Claire. Not yet, not directly. But there was a heaviness beneath some of his words, a carefulness that Lucy noticed without understanding. When they finally stood to leave, half the cafe pretending very hard not to watch them, Ryan held the door for her. Same time next week? Lucy asked, and then immediately flushed. I mean, for coffee. I just meant. Yeah, Ryan said, cutting through her spiral with quiet ease. I'd like that. Neither of them noticed Oliver the barista snapping a photo of them on the sidewalk, both of them smiling, until it was already posted online with the caption, Lawn Chair Girl and the Captain. Is this a whole romance now? By morning, it had 40,000 likes. Chapter 5. The town won't let it go. If Lucy had hoped the lawn chair fervor might fade, Pinewood Falls had other plans. Someone, no one ever fully determined who, though Tessa, the social media volunteer, was widely suspected, mounted the original lawn chair on a small plaque outside the fire station with a brass plate reading, Rescued, July 12th, Never Forgotten. Children began asking Ryan to autograph their own lawn chairs at the farmer's market, presenting them with the solemnity of kids getting a baseball signed by their favorite pitcher. Ryan, visibly bewildered but too kind to refuse a child anything, signed each one with his name and, at the insistence of an 8-year-old named Milo, a small doodle of a flame. The diner added a lawn chair special to its menu. A club sandwich served inexplicably with a tiny paper umbrella shaped like a lounge chair. The hardware store sold out of lawn chairs 3 times in 1 month, mostly to tourists who'd started driving in from Denver just to see the town from the video and take selfies with the memorial chair outside the fire station. Lucy, for her part, found herself the subject of a level of local fame she had never asked for and did not particularly want. People she'd never met waved at her in the grocery store. A local kids' art class asked her to come teach a workshop. Because you're basically famous now, Ms. Harper. The tourism board approached her about designing an official Pinewood Falls lawn chair rescue commemorative mug. I'm an illustrator, not a mug designer, she told Priya on the phone, lying on her bed with her arm over her eyes. You could be both. Lucy, this is publicity money can't buy. Lean into it. I don't want to lean into it. I want people to know me for my actual work, not because a chair flew onto a library roof. But even as she said it, she couldn't deny that something good had come from the chaos. Namely, the standing Wednesday coffee dates with Ryan that had, somewhere along the way, become the best part of her week. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Ryan would arrive straight from his shift, sometimes still smelling faintly of smoke, and Lucy would already have claimed their corner booth. They talked about everything and nothing. Her latest illustration commissions, his department's ongoing budget struggles, the ridiculous merchandise the town kept producing. Slowly, carefully, like a man testing ice before walking across it, Ryan began to open up. He told her about his father, Big Tom, and the day the department got the radio call about the fire on Widow's Ridge. He told her about the promise he'd made to himself at 19, standing at his father's funeral, that he would spend his life protecting this town the way his father had. He did not yet tell her about Claire. Lucy noticed the gap, the careful way Ryan's stories always seemed to circle around some hidden center without ever quite reaching it, but she didn't push. She recognized, in some instinctive way, that Ryan Walker was a man who gave pieces of himself slowly, deliberately, and that rushing him would only make him retreat. Instead, she told him about her own losses, her parents' early divorce, the quiet, lonely apartment in Chicago where she'd spent the last 5 years watching her freelance career shrink smaller and smaller until she barely recognized her own work anymore. Her grandmother's death and the strange grief of inheriting a house full of someone else's whole life. Photo albums, a closet of floral dresses, a kitchen drawer stuffed with rubber bands, just in case. She used to write me letters, Lucy said one Wednesday, staring into her coffee. Even after I got a smartphone, even after email, she'd write these long letters in cursive, telling me about the town, about the mountains, about which of her neighbors had done something scandalous with their tomato garden. I have a whole shoebox of them. I haven't been able to read them since she died. I keep meaning to, and then I just can't. Ryan reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but close, his fingers resting near hers on the scarred wood surface. But you don't have to read them until you're ready. There's no deadline on grief. Lucy looked up at him, surprised by the gentleness in his voice, by how completely he seemed to understand something she hadn't been able to explain to anyone else, not even Priya. How do you know that? She asked quietly. Something shuddered behind Ryan's eyes, not coldly, but carefully, like a man closing a door he wasn't ready to open all the way. I just know, he said, and Lucy, sensing the boundary, let it be. But she found herself wondering, more and more, what exactly Ryan Walker was protecting behind that door. Chapter 6. Behind the Uniform. It was the community cookout, held every August on the shores of Pinewood Lake, that finally cracked things open. The whole town turned out, as it always did. Picnic tables groaning under potato salad and burgers, kids running through sprinklers, the volunteer fire department manning the grill in an event that had become, this year, unusually popular thanks to a certain viral video. Someone had even brought the memorial lawn chair down from the fire station and set it up by the water, where a line of tourists patiently waited to take photos in it. Lucy sat with Ryan on the dock as the sun began its long slide toward the mountains, both of them holding paper plates of half-eaten corn on the cob, watching the light turn the lake to hammered gold. Marcus told me you used to be engaged, Lucy said, gently, after a long silence. She'd debated bringing it up for weeks, but something about the softness of the evening, the way Ryan's shoulders had finally relaxed, made it feel like the right moment. You don't have to talk about it. I wanted you to know that I know. So you don't have to carry it alone if you don't want to. Ryan was quiet for a long time. Long enough that Lucy worried she'd overstepped, that she'd shattered something fragile between them. Then he spoke. Her name was Claire, he said, his voice low, steady, but carrying a weight Lucy had never heard in it before. She was a nurse. We were 6 weeks from the wedding. There was an ice storm. A truck ran a light on Route 9, and he stopped, staring out at the water. I was the one who responded to the call. I didn't know it was her until I got there. Lucy's breath caught. Ryan, I'm so sorry. It's been 7 years. He said it like a fact, not a comfort. Everyone in this town treats me like I'm made of glass because of it. Like I might shatter if someone brings it up. So I stopped letting anyone bring it up. Easier that way. Is it? Easier? Ryan looked at her then, really looked at her, in a way that made Lucy's heart stumble over itself. No, he admitted. It's not easier. It's just quieter. I put everything into this department, into this town, because it's easier to take care of everyone else than to figure out how to take care of myself. I haven't. He exhaled hard, running a hand through his hair. I haven't let myself want anything for a long time. Not really. Not until a lawn chair landed on a library roof and a woman with paint all over her face apologized to me like she'd personally caused a natural disaster. Lucy laughed, despite the tears gathering in her eyes. That's a very roundabout compliment. I'm not good at the direct kind. Try. Ryan turned to face her fully, the gold evening light catching the gray at his temples, the careful, guarded lines of his face softening into something achingly open. I think about you constantly, he said. I think about Wednesdays the whole rest of the week. I haven't looked forward to anything in 7 years the way I look forward to seeing you. And it scares me, Lucy, because the last time I let myself care about someone this much, I lost her in about 4 seconds on an icy road, and I don't know if I have it in me to survive that twice. Lucy reached over and took his hand, really took it this time, threading her fingers through his, feeling the roughness of his palm, the slight tremor he was clearly trying to suppress. I can't promise you nothing bad will ever happen, she said softly. Nobody can promise that, but I can promise I'm not going anywhere just because things might get hard. I've spent the last 5 years being careful too. Careful with my work, careful with my heart, careful enough that I forgot how to actually live. And then I moved to a town where a windstorm turned my whole life upside down. And somehow, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Ryan looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face, and for the first time since Lucy had met him, his entire expression opened, unguarded, and searching and hopeful all at once. Lucy Harper, he said quietly, I think I'm in trouble. Good, she whispered. Me too. Behind them, oblivious to the moment unfolding on the dock, a group of tourists posed for photos in the memorial lawn chair, completely unaware that a much bigger rescue was happening just a few yards away. Chapter 7. When fame becomes too much. For a while, everything was golden. Ryan and Lucy's relationship, now very much official, very much public, much to the entire town's collective delight, settled into something warm and steady. They hiked the Aspen Ridge Trail on his days off, Ryan pointing out landmarks his father had taught him decades ago. They spent Saturday mornings at the fire station, where Lucy had become an honorary member of the crew's breakfast tradition, flipping pancakes alongside Marcus, while the younger volunteers teased Ryan mercilessly about his newfound happiness. Never thought I'd see the captain smile this much, Marcus said one morning, nudging Ryan with an elbow. Careful, your face might get stuck that way. Shut up and eat your eggs, Marcus, But the internet, it turned out, was not interested in letting the story stay simple. A tabloid website ran a piece titled, "Lawn Chair Love Story," inside the secret tragedy behind America's favorite firefighter, which dredged up details about Claire's death, complete with unauthorized photos of her memorial service, framed as clickbait, tragic backstory content. The article painted Ryan as a broken hero finally healing, language that made Lucy furious on his behalf and made Ryan go quiet and distant in a way she hadn't seen since their conversation on the dock. Reporters started showing up outside the fire station uninvited. A national morning show requested an interview, offering an exclusive on the lawn chair romance. Strangers messaged Lucy on Instagram asking increasingly invasive questions about her relationship, her grandmother's death, even Claire. Ryan, who had spent 7 years carefully rebuilding a quiet, controlled life, found himself unraveling under the pressure. He started declining Lucy's calls, not out of anger, but out of something closer to shame, a creeping certainty that he'd let his private grief become public entertainment, that he'd failed to protect the one thing he'd sworn, since Claire, never to expose to the world's carelessness again. "You're pulling away," Lucy said, finally cornering him at the station after 3 days of unanswered texts. "I'm not pulling away. I'm just handling things." "By ignoring me? By trying to keep this from becoming a bigger circus than it already is?" Ryan's voice rose, sharper than she'd ever heard it, and he immediately looked like he regretted it. He ran a hand over his face. "I'm sorry. I never wanted any of this. The video, the attention, the articles digging up Claire like she's some kind of plot twist in a story people are watching for entertainment. I can't control any of it, and I don't know how to protect you, or myself, from it." "You don't have to protect me from it," Lucy said, stepping closer. "We can face it together. That's what this is supposed to mean, isn't it? Found family, community, all the stuff this whole town keeps saying about us." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "Simple. Because every time I start to believe something good is actually mine to keep, the universe finds a way to take it. I lost my father to this job. I lost Claire to 4 seconds on an icy road. And now, half the country is treating our relationship like a rom-com they get to watch for free. And I can't shake the feeling that if I let myself believe this is real, if I let myself have this, it's going to get taken away too." Lucy felt her chest tighten, tears rising unbidden. "So what? You're going to push me away before it can happen? Preemptively lose me so it hurts less later?" Ryan didn't answer, and his silence, more than any words could have, told Lucy everything she needed to know about where his head currently was. "That's not fair," she said quietly. "Not to you, and not to me." "I know," Ryan said, his voice breaking slightly. "I know it's not fair. I just don't know how to do this any other way." Lucy stood there for a long moment, watching the man she'd fallen for wrestle with ghosts she couldn't fight for him. Finally, she stepped back. "I'm not going to chase you while you decide whether I'm worth the risk," she said, gentler now, but firm. "I'll be here when you figure it out, but you have to actually want this, Ryan, not just survive it." She left him standing in the fire station bay, alone beside the memorial lawn chair, staring after her with an expression of pure, silent devastation. Chapter 8. The storm. The first real snowstorm of the season hit Pinewood Falls 3 weeks later, arriving with the kind of sudden ferocity mountain towns knew to respect and fear in equal measure. Lucy hadn't spoken to Ryan since their fight at the station, though she'd heard through town gossip, impossible to avoid in Pinewood Falls, that he'd thrown himself even harder into work, taking every shift, volunteering for every call, running himself thin in the particular way of a man trying to outrun his own feelings. She was home alone that night, watching the snow pile up against her windows, trying to distract herself by finally opening the shoebox of her grandmother's letters. She'd been putting it off for months, but something about the isolation of the storm, the quiet of the house, made it feel like the right night. The first letter was dated 3 years earlier, her grandmother's looping cursive filling the page with stories about the town, about a new family that had moved in down the street, about the ongoing feud with her neighbor over a property line hedge. Lucy laughed and cried in equal measure, feeling her grandmother's voice rise up off the page, as clear as if she were sitting beside her. Then she found the letter near the bottom of the box, the last one her grandmother had ever written, dated just 2 weeks before she passed. My dearest Lucy, I don't know when you'll read this, or if you ever will, but I wanted you to have these words regardless. I've lived a long, full life in this little town, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The people worth loving are rarely the easy ones. Love isn't about finding someone without scars. It's about finding someone whose scars you're willing to help heal, and who's willing to help heal yours in return. I hope, wherever you end up, whatever life brings you, that you find someone worth that kind of patience. And I hope you're brave enough to give them the same. All my love, always. Gran Lucy was still crying, letter clutched to her chest, when her phone buzzed with an alert that made her blood run cold. A flash flood warning for the area near Miller's Creek, the road that ran along the base of Widow's Ridge, the same road Ryan's crew regularly patrolled during storms. The same ridge where his father had died fighting a wildfire nearly 2 decades earlier. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Tessa, sent to what Lucy realized was a wide group chain of concerned townspeople. Waters rising fast near Miller's Creek. Fire department got a call. Car stuck in the floodwater on the low bridge. Ryan and Marcus are heading out now. Please keep them in your thoughts. Conditions are bad out there. Lucy's heart seized. She thought of every conversation Ryan had ever had with her about the dangers of ice, of sudden storms, of the particular cruelty of weather in these mountains. She thought about Claire, about the 4 seconds it had taken to change Ryan's entire life. She thought about her grandmother's letter, still damp with her tears, about scars worth healing. She didn't think anymore after that. She grabbed her coat and drove, white-knuckled, through the storm toward the fire station, needing, desperately, irrationally, to be close to wherever Ryan was, even if there was nothing at all she could do to help. The station was a flurry of tense activity when she arrived, radios crackling, Tessa pacing by the front desk with her phone pressed to her ear. Lucy caught fragments of the radio traffic, water levels, a stranded elderly driver named Frank Callahan, visibility near 0. Ryan's voice, tight but steady, coordinating the rescue. They got the car, Tessa reported after an agonizing 20 minutes, relief flooding her young face. Frank's out. He's okay, just cold and shaken up. They're bringing him in now. Frank's out. Lucy exhaled a breath she felt like she'd been holding for an hour. And Ryan? Marcus? On their way back. It was another 15 minutes before the truck pulled into the bay, headlights cutting through the driving snow. Lucy watched, heart in her throat, as Ryan climbed down from the cab, soaked through, exhausted but unmistakably, blessedly whole. He saw her standing there and stopped dead. Lucy, what are you doing here? It's a blizzard. I heard about the call, she said, closing the distance between them before she could think better of it. I couldn't just sit at home not knowing. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, snow melting in his dark hair, exhaustion etched into every line of his face, and then, without a word, pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could feel his heart hammering against her ear. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair, voice rough. "For pushing you away. For being a coward about this. I spent 7 years convincing myself that not wanting anything meant I couldn't lose anything. And it took almost losing Frank Callahan out there tonight, and thinking about how much I wanted to see your face again if something went wrong, to realize how stupid that was. Ryan, I love you," he said, pulling back just enough to look at her, his eyes fierce and clear despite the fear and adrenaline still coursing through him. "I've loved you since you apologized to me 3 times for a lawn chair. I was just too scared to say it because saying it makes it real, and real things can be taken away. But I'd rather have you, for however long I get, than spend the rest of my life protecting myself from a loss that hasn't even happened." Lucy felt tears freezing on her cheeks, felt her whole chest crack open with relief and love, and something like coming home. "I love you too," she said. "And for the record, I read my grandmother's letters tonight. She said the people worth loving are never the easy ones. I think she'd have really liked you." Ryan let out a laugh that was half sob, pulling her close again as the snow kept falling around them, and somewhere behind them, safely tucked in the station's front display case, the memorial lawn chair sat quietly witnessing yet another chapter of the story it had accidentally started. Chapter 9. What Really Needed Saving. The days following the storm brought a new kind of quiet to Pinewood Falls. Not the quiet of before the video, but a settled, grateful quiet. The kind that comes after a town collectively holds its breath and lets it go. Frank Callahan, the elderly man rescued from the flooded bridge, insisted on hosting a small dinner in Ryan and Marcus's honor, which somehow ballooned, this being Pinewood Falls, into another town-wide gathering at the community hall, complete with a banner that read, "Thank you, Captain Walker," and "Lawn chair approved." Lucy stood near the back of the hall, watching Ryan accept handshakes and hugs with the particular discomfort of a man who preferred giving help to receiving gratitude, and felt something settle fully into place inside her chest. This was it, she realized. This messy, warm, occasionally ridiculous town, with its lawn chair memorials and its over-involved gossip network and its fierce, protective love for its people. This was home in a way Chicago had never quite managed to be. Later that week, over dinner at Ryan's small, tidy house on the edge of town, Lucy found herself studying a photograph on his mantel, a younger Ryan, maybe 25, standing beside a laughing woman with bright red hair and a wide, easy smile. "That's her," she said softly. "Claire." Ryan came to stand beside her, looking at the photo with an expression that had softened over the past weeks, from raw grief into something gentler, not forgetting, but healing. "That was taken at Marcus's wedding. She caught the bouquet that day, told everyone it was a sign. She looks like she had a wonderful laugh." "She did. Loud. Obnoxious, honestly. I loved it." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "I used to think keeping her photo up meant I was still grieving her the right way. Lately I've started thinking maybe it just means I loved her, and that loving her doesn't have to compete with loving you. There's room for both, I think. I just needed time to believe that." Lucy leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "I'm not trying to replace her, Ryan. I just want to build something new alongside the space she'll always have." "I know," he said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "You already have." It was Marcus, a few days later, who let slip, during a fire station breakfast, over a plate of Tessa's famous cinnamon pancakes, that Ryan had been quietly looking at rings. "He's going to kill me for telling you that," Marcus said, immediately regretting it as Lucy's fork clattered against her plate. "Rings? As in? Forget I said anything." "Marcus." "I said forget it. But he was grinning, and so was every other firefighter at the table. And Lucy realized, with a warm rush of certainty, that this found family of hers already knew something she hadn't dared to fully hope for herself. That evening, walking home along Main Street as the autumn festival decorations went up around them, hay bales and pumpkins and string lights crisscrossing between lampposts, Lucy found herself standing in front of the fire station's memorial lawn chair, now framed by a small wooden sign the town council had voted, unanimously and with great ceremony, to install "Where It All Began." She thought about the letter from her grandmother, still tucked safely in her nightstand drawer. About scars worth healing. About the strange, winding path that had brought her from a lonely Chicago apartment to this small mountain town. All because a summer wind had decided her lawn chair belonged somewhere else. She thought that perhaps her grandmother, wherever she was laughing the loudest of anyone at how this had all turned out. Chapter 10. Love Worth Rescuing. The Pinewood Falls. Autumn Festival arrived with its usual chaos of hayrides, pumpkin carving contests, and Doris's infamous cider stand. But this year carried a particular electricity that had the whole town buzzing with anticipation. Though only a handful of people, Marcus, Tessa, and Priya, who had flown in from Chicago under mysterious pretenses, knew exactly why. Lucy had been told, simply, that Ryan wanted to meet her by the lake at sunset. For something important. She'd assumed it was festival-related, some fire department demonstration or charity announcement. She had not expected to arrive at the shoreline and find it transformed. Strings of warm lights woven through the surrounding pines. A small gathering of their closest friends waiting quietly at a respectful distance. And Ryan standing at the water's edge in his good jacket, looking more nervous than she had ever seen him during any actual emergency. And beside him, positioned with obvious ceremonial significance, sat the lawn chair. "Ryan?" Lucy said, laughing despite the sudden thundering of her heart. "Why is the chair here?" "Because," Ryan said, taking her hands as the sunset turned the lake to fire and gold behind him. "Everything that mattered started with that ridiculous chair. You flew it onto a library roof, and I climbed up to get it. And somewhere between then and now, I fell in love with the most accident-prone, warm-hearted, brilliant woman I've ever met. This town fell in love with our story before I even let myself admit there was a story to fall in love with. And I don't want to spend one more day pretending I'm not the luckiest man alive because a windstorm decided to interfere with my Saturday." He lowered himself to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, and Lucy's hands flew to her mouth, tears already spilling over. "Lucy Harper," Ryan said, his voice steady despite the emotion thick in it. "You rescued me long before I ever climbed that ladder. You gave me permission to want something again, to believe that loving someone doesn't mean losing them, that healing isn't a betrayal of grief, but a continuation of love in a new shape. I want to build a life with you here, in this ridiculous, wonderful town, surrounded by people who love us both. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Lucy said, laughing and crying in the same breath, pulling him up to kiss him as their small crowd of friends erupted into cheers behind them. "Yes, of course. Yes, friends." As Ryan slid the ring onto her finger, the assembled crowd, which had grown considerably larger than Lucy initially realized, half the town having quietly gathered at the tree line to witness the moment, broke into applause, and someone predictably shouted, "Somebody get a photo with the chair!" Lucy and Ryan looked at each other and burst out laughing, the sound rolling out over the lake, joyful and unguarded and entirely, gloriously theirs. They were married the following June on the shores of Pinewood Lake, with Marcus as best man and Tessa as maid of honor, and half the volunteer fire department serving as impromptu ushers in their dress uniforms. Priya cried through the entire ceremony. Mrs. Odom, seated in the front row, told anyone who would listen that she had personally started the whole thing by calling 911, and she would be taking full credit for the rest of her natural life. And at the edge of the reception, positioned with great ceremony beside the gift table, sat the lawn chair, now retired officially from library roof duty, weighed down permanently and safely, exactly as Ryan had once instructed, ready for its new job as the unofficial mascot of the happiest marriage Pinewood Falls had seen in a generation. Years later, when their daughter, Grace, asked how her parents met, Lucy would always tell the story the same way, settling into the porch swing with the very same weathered lawn chair pulled up beside her. "Well," she'd say, "it all started with a very determined wind, a very unfortunate library roof, and the bravest, most wonderfully grumpy firefighter this town has ever known." And somewhere in the telling, every single time, Ryan would appear in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing that same small, unguarded smile he'd first shown her in a coffee shop corner booth years before, and say, the way he always did, "Don't forget the part where I had to fix her gutter too." The end.